Welcome to the Irish Pagan School podcast. Your hosts are authors and co-founders of the Irish Pagan School here in County Waterford, Ireland, Laura O'Brien and Jon O'Sullivan. Fáilte.
I just don't have the time. Tag the agus fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. Jon O'Sullivan, Irish Pagan School here. And is that something you have ever said about your spirituality, about your practices, about your offerings, or even your personal self-care and well-being? Because it's one we receive quite commonly at the Irish Pagan School. People contact us for a number of reasons. It's like, okay, well, oh, I'm new to my path. I'm trying to figure it out, or, I'm trying to build a relationship with deity. I'm having dreams or I'm having experiences. There's this thing that keeps coming up, being it a goddess, guardian, or guide, reaching out to them, and they just feel that they're not getting the right information or that they're not able to understand properly, and they come to us seeking guidance, and we're grateful. We really, really are grateful every single time, and we make as much effort as we can to provide the good resources for people to take ownership and to figure this out, because ethically speaking, it's not for me to sit here and tell you what your God's guardians or ancestors are trying to inform you of. That's a very personal kind of thing. I can give references, I can give resources, I can quote previous examples in the lore, but I can't answer that question because only you can answer that question. And then one of the pushbacks we get is, well, I don't have time. And to be honest, whether you believe you have time or whether you believe you don't have time, you're right. It is one of those catch-22 circumstances. The same as like whether you believe you can do something or whether you believe you can't do something, you're right. Time, as we understand it, is one of the dominant controlling factors of our lives. We live in a very regulated society based upon time, with certain expectations around time. If you're working in a common office requirement job, then you're 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. If you're working in a retail circumstance, you're 40 to like 50 hours a week, given to, selling your energy and your effort in exchange for money to be able to support your life. But you're selling effort and energy. You're not selling your time, because time is a construct. Time is something we made up. For a long time, like, there was no such thing as a 5-day work week. And there was no such thing as a weekend. It's only in a post-industrial revolution that we can see this move towards heavy industry or industry-driven society, that we have these requirements of time frames and then time off. And it was really down to what is the optimal amount of effort you can get from a human being. And all of the studies says, well, anything more than 8 hours a day, you're probably not going to get productivity after that point. And unless you give 2 days off in 7, you're not going to get productivity long term. And sad to say, so much of what our society expectations around time and around how we measure and mark it out and allot our time is based on those studies, based on actual capitalism structures, which means that anyone who doesn't fall within those circumstances, or anyone who doesn't, trade their effort and energy, trade their labor within those confines, is in some way timeless. They're not bound to anyone else's time frames to their life. They get to do life to their own time. Now, it does shift and change again. Anyone who is working in the home, which is a job, absolutely, taking care and raising children, you're bound to the education time frames for those children, which is the same circumstances around managing and monitoring time. So it's for something that we say, oh, I don't have time, there is a lot of it going around, even down to like the 24 hours that we have segmented our solar rotation into. We know on average, most people require between the standard set was 8 hours sleep, or you have to get 8 hours sleep. But logically now, in more sleep studies we've seen more recently, is not everyone is aligned to that 8 hours. Most times I'm at 6 to 7 hours, and then sometimes I'm at 12 to 12 hours. If I'm not feeling well, I'm getting over something at the moment, and even then I was like, yeah, I need to just go back and go to sleep again. Well, actually, the plan was I'm going to go lie down and rest my body, give myself the restful break. And then my brain decided, oh, well, we're resting, are we? I've got this sleep payoff that we need to get done, the sleep debt. And I slept a big chunk of yesterday away, because that's what my body needed to do. And so the concept of not having time, we don't have time if we don't make time. And that's where we have to own the responsibility of our time. We have to own the fact that, I doom scrolled for an hour yesterday. Oh, well, okay, I'm lying. It was more than that. The social media had me, which was it's designed to. The actual algorithms and everything else are designed to cause and trigger stress responses to keep you looking. They're designed to be addictive. The apps are designed by people who studied gambling in order to make the apps more appealing and more addictive. And I've seen it myself. Like sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm going to close out this social media app because I'm done. And then I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do? And then I just go back and I open the app again. And then I catch myself like, I literally just closed this app. Why am I reopening it? But sometimes I don't catch myself and I realize, oh shit, here's me losing time. And in some cases, like, okay, part of my business, it does involve social media work, but I have to choose that time. And so I choose this is when I'm going to do that hour to go live on TikTok, for example. Or here's where I'm going to, choose to make time to go in and answer all the comments in the YouTube feed or go onto the Patreon kind of stuff. So there is an element that is my occupation there, but the system is still designed to make me swipe to the next video, look to the next thing. Now, again, it's not bad. It only becomes a problem when we're not doing it mindfully. And that this really is the answer to the question about how do I have time? How do I make time for my spirituality? How do I make time for my spiritual self-care? It has to come down to mindfulness because, you know, your practice in spiritual self-care doesn't have to be guaranteed 3 hour session under the full moon every month. It could be as simple as, okay, well, I'm going to put the headphones away, put the phone nowhere near me when I'm lighting a candle on an altar space, you know? And it's the intention of striking the match, 2, 3 deep breaths, and then I offer the flame for enter ancestor, God, guide, guardian name. And then once the flame is lit, I breathe out, and there you go. How long does it take you to strike a match, take 3 breaths, and then walk away from it? A minute? 2 minutes? But that's still 2 minutes of intentional energy. That's still 2 minutes of focus. That's still 2 minutes of making space for a relationship which is important to you, if your spiritual relationships are important to you. Now, I'm sitting here cupping a mug of coffee here, and how long does it take a mug of coffee? A couple of minutes to boil the kettle, put the scoops of coffee and sugar in the mug, add some cream, and then stir it. Okay, great. At the end of which I have coffee, but I tack on top of that making time for my God. Again, put the phone away, like, not always easy, I'll be honest, because again, they're designed to be keeping our attention and our focus on it. But even if it's something else, like turn the radio down, like turn the TV off for a minute, or turn yourself towards just the boiling of the kettle, and then I talk to the Dagda when I'm doing that. The first cream, every time I open a fresh bottle of cream, the first is poured for him. And over the years, I would actually pour it in a separate vessel and then I'd make my coffee because that's where I have cream. But then my relationship with him slightly changed and he was like, you could just make me one of those as well. So now when I'm making coffee, it is this moment, a few minutes of intentionality as I put energy in to stir the coffee and I talk to him. I express my words out loud. Now, again, I'm not announcing it around the household, but I'm standing there in a moment having a conversation with my deity whose support I greatly value. Or if it's an ancestor that I'm talking about, my granny, granddads who've passed or anything else, it's making that intentionality of like, hey, I have an open moment. I'm making the moment available. And sometimes the dag that like is busy and I don't feel or have any experiences. But if I didn't make the moment available, I would never have any experiences because I'm not making that opportunity. I'm not turning my mindset, turning my energy towards that connection and that relationship. So the struggle of having time doesn't have to be a struggle. It is about being mindful, being intentional around how you use your time. Like I had to go and do a chore drive this morning to go and pick up something for the kid here in the house, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a couple of minutes just to walk by the sea myself, to give to myself that time of some fresh air and the rolling waves and the sunshine on my face. Of course, I could have just, picked up what I need to do, turn around and drove back. But, I made the choice and I took the headphones, I left them on me, but I was not listening to a whole lot of stuff. I was trying to engage with the nature around me. That's spirituality. That's part of our regulation of our physical form, emotional form, mental form, and spiritual form by connecting with the natural elements. So it doesn't have to be, again, big ritual performances. It doesn't have to be, aligned with a particular full moon, dark moon, waxing, waning. Now, again, we were having a conversation in our Kurtor meeting. That's a really great way to give yourself structure. I'm not knocking it. I really, really am. Like there, sometimes it can be difficult to say, well, when do I do these things? How do I do these things? How do I engage in my spirituality? Use the moon cycle. It is one of the most stable structures that we can rely upon. The solar rotation shifts year to year. Like the length of the day gets longer and shorter depending on which angle our world is. But you're always going to get a full moon. You're always going to get a dark moon, a waxing and a waning. Like it is one of the most notable like seasonal like clocks, like native environmental clocks that we have, um, because of how our ancestors have always looked at it and always used it, and the pull of the nearest celestial body, creating our tides, creating our waves. There's a whole lot of stuff that's built into that is easy to step on with and say, okay, well, all you gotta do is get a calendar, set a reminder in your phone when is the full moon, when is the dark moon, give your reminder a day beforehand, and then that is the day where you, I don't know, clean your tools of like your spiritual tools if you have them, or just go for a walk and get out into that energy yourself, or make particular effort around tidying off the stuff that builds up on your altar over a bit of time and then resetting it, using that full moon or dark moon energy around making those shifts and making those changes. So time is all around us, but time doesn't really exist at all unless we choose it to, unless we make it exist in its increments by our force of will. I know it might seem strange or might seem odd, but like from a certain perspective, yeah, if you are selling your time in your job, great. But that's that's someone else's expectation of presence and attention and all and energy and all the rest of it. Having time for yourself means making time for yourself, having time for your relationships, your friendships, be it with your the people in our world or like family members, significant others, anything like that at all. Like making time for those relationships is what involves our growth and our life and our love for and our connection with others. So the same can be said for our spiritual connections and our spiritual relationships, and it doesn't have to be gods. It doesn't have to be like, spiritual entities. It could literally be your ancestors, you know, honoring your granny, your granddads, honoring like the bloodline of people who've gone before you that led to you being here where you are right now. There's a huge amount of magic that went into making you the person that you are. When you look along the scale of probability and possibility of all of the individuals who had to meet, had to come together, have to have a relationship, choose to, like, whatever length of a relationship, and then to couple in that relationship, and then the millions and millions and magnitudes of what then turns out to be you based on your DNA. Based on whatever else. And then the socialization that happens as we grow and around a family or a community or whatever it is. It's huge when we think about it. Every single person is a miracle of a manifestation out of chaos. And time is something that we can choose to build ourselves a structure on. But it only is relevant if we choose it to be relevant. Time has an impact on us when we choose it to have an impact on us and choose to use it to fulfill our needs or to fulfill the needs of others. And so why not make sure that you carve off a little bit of that time for yourself, for that care? Now, I feel I've rambled a bit, and I do apologize if it has been a bit stilted. As I said, I've been unwell recently, so got to get back into the swing of this by turning up, making the time to sit down and have these conversations and get back into it. Um, we have people come to us and they're like, "Gods, I only wish I'd found you sooner." I'm at a certain point in my life now, and I've followed so many other spiritual pathways, and it didn't seem to fit, didn't seem right, and you know, and some people feel a little bit guilt about that, or that they've done something wrong, or that and I always reassure them, I was like, this is the time, this is now. Like whatever's gone before is the path that led you to now, but now is where you get to choose. Now is where you get to do something. Now is where you get to be empowered within the moment to make choice and to direct your energy towards wherever you want to go. And so, whatever the past is, it's kind of gone. Whatever the future is, doesn't really exist. So what we have now is the moment where we are in this moment of time. So again, whether you believe you have time or believe you don't have time, you're right. So why not choose to make time? Choose to intentionally be mindful. The solution is, as I said, mindfulness. Stirring the coffee, having a conversation with God's guides, guardians. Taking the walk and like resting against a tree for a few minutes because that connection to natural environment means something to you, you know? Or even just taking yourself away from the room you're always sitting in and go out into a different space. Sit outside for a few minutes. Like I literally came in from being out in the back garden with the sun on my face to do this video. And it's kind of what inspired this video. I was like, oh, what am I going to talk about now? And I was like, I just need some time. I just need some time to go outside and put the sun on my face. And so I was out there with the sun on my face, and then my thoughts were time. We all need time. But how do we get time? We have to choose it. We have to make it. We have to choose what we're going to do with our time. Because unlike God's guides, guardians, we are finite. We are here for a limited space of heartbeats and breaths and everything else. So, we are temporally finite individuals. So how we use our time, what we do with our time, is kind of important from that perspective. So hopefully this has been interesting for you. As I said, we want to provide as many good resources as we can. So go to irishpagan.school/free. Whole list of resources there. If you do one thing a day, you'd have over a year worth of content. And more videos, more podcasts. We're constantly at it all of the time to try and provide access to good resources and to provide community care and connection as much as we can as an education body in the world where it is at the moment. But the way time is right now, it might be scary times, difficult times, but even those times too will pass. All we got to do is keep on going forward. Look after yourself. Take care. Agus Slán. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a positive review in your podcast listener. Then head over to irishpaganschool.com and enroll in one of our free or paid courses. Slán go fóill, and we will see you next time.